Hey, welcome back to the virtual Y. Maybe you're tuning in on Facebook Live today. Wherever you're tuning in from, welcome, and thanks for taking this time out of your day to turn inward. The currency that we have to pay is truly our time and our attention. So let's use this time and pay our attention to how we are in this moment. And as oversimplified as it may seem, attention is the medicine that our body needs most. So let's find ourselves comfortable, whether you're sitting in a chair, on the ground, on a cushion. Maybe you're laying down flat with a nice long spine. But we're going to get comfortable. We're going to use our ability to change the way that our body is, primarily through the chemical process of the breath, and also how we direct our attention to the felt sensation of life instead of our attention to the narrated, explained version of life that we normally are operating from. We're stepping out of the mind and into the body. And if that sounds confusing, don't worry about it. Just follow along, do what feels right for you, and make this your practice of examining what it means to be you in this moment. So once you're comfortable, try to find yourself symmetrical. If you're sitting up tall, maybe you notice the height of where your shoulders are at, or if one shoulder feels higher than the other, which is pretty common. Maybe your head feels like it's tilted to one side or the other. Try to find a nice symmetrical posture. Notice how you are on the ground. If you're seated, notice there's more weight in one side of your seat than the other. Or is it more toward the back than the front? And just take these very subtle movements to become more mindful of how you are holding gravity in and on your body. What you might notice right away is a little discomfort. Sometimes when we start to pay attention to our body, we become ever more clear that our body can use some more attention, right? So don't get turned off by a little discomfort. A little discomfort is a good lesson. But if it feels like pain or extreme discomfort, by all means, move, honor your body, trust your body. A little discomfort is okay. A lot of discomfort, no. So now that we're vertical sitting, or if you're laying down, maybe that symmetry comes down to where you notice the left and right side of your seat, your shoulder blades, the back of your head, the heels, whatever's on the ground. Try to become as symmetrical as possible. And you might notice this requires work because we might need to lengthen or stretch or soften or relax different parts of our body to feel closer to symmetrical or equal on both sides. Now we're going to use the breath. I believe one of the most powerful tools to be present in your body. Because most of the time we're completely unaware of our breath. And our breath becomes shallow. It doesn't really serve all the chemical properties that our body needs to complete all these chemical processes. So we wind up with knots in our body, lactic acid, which are all a result of anaerobic respiration or breathing without getting enough oxygen. So we're just going to focus on getting more oxygen than usual. That's what we're using our attention to provide us in this moment. So how do we do that? Well, we just breathe in a little slower through the nose and imagine we're filling down to the bottom of our belly. You can even feel your belly pulling out as you're breathing in. We fill from the bottom of the lungs to the top of the lungs. And when we breathe out, we don't just dump the breath out, but we let it smoothly pour out, letting the lungs deflate, but keeping the spine long and as symmetrical as we can. So when you complete an exhale, the inhale begins. And when the inhale begins or ends, the exhale begins. But it doesn't have to be an abrupt stop and start. We could even try to picture the breath flowing like a figure eight. In smoothly to slow down toward the end, and then turn around and start exhaling slowly, and then it speeds up, and then you slow it down. So imagine a figure eight on its side, or an infinity sign, with this smooth transition of switching directions. If you can do that with the breath, which might not be easy, that's okay. We're just going to keep practicing to see if we can get better at it. So breathe all the way in, filling the belly to the chest. We breathe out slowly and steadily. So continue with this breath, this smooth, mindful transition from inhale to exhale. It's almost seamless, like you can hardly tell where the inhale begins and the exhale ends, and vice versa, because of this control and care we're taking of the breath. What have you noticed about the capacity of your breath as you're breathing? Is it getting easier to draw in a little more smoothly, steadily, and more expansively? Or have you noticed it's still a challenge to breathe in steadily and more expansively? You can always find a little bit more space in the lungs. You don't have to strain or push too hard. Instead, you have to relax and just point that attention to see if these different spaces in your lungs can soften and open. What do you notice about your thoughts? Do they wander to the regular scheduled program of thinking and narrating and explaining what's happening, as well as remembering stuff from the past and predicting stuff in the future all at the same time? We want to step outside of the busyness of the mind. So if you still hear that voice reminding you, oh, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, oh, I gotta remember my spine. Oh, I wonder if I remembered to feed the dog. Whatever thoughts come up, let them go and know that every breath is a brand new experience. So no matter how distracted you get, no matter how far away your mind or your attention gets from the present moment, as soon as you realize that the mind has wandered, bringing it back is the practice. But noticing that your mind has wandered is, in fact, the moment when you awaken. And you awaken again and again to remember that this routine cycle of thought, although it's easy, it doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve our attention. It certainly doesn't serve our body or our well-being. So just listen to the sound of the breath coming and going. And if you notice the narrator, the voice in your head, or the story that you tell yourself, if you notice that taking your attention, just let it go. Start the next breath new, fresh. So I'll be quiet for about a minute, maybe 2 minutes. We're just going to listen to the breath. No matter how many times you get distracted, that's okay. 'Cause every time you notice that you've been distracted, you've awakened once again. No matter where the mind wanders, that's okay. The practice is to notice just long enough to let it go. Recentering your attention on the body, the symmetry, the length of the spine, the size of the breath. What's happening to your body now that it's getting more oxygen? Do you feel more cold, more hot? Are you aware of discomfort that you weren't aware of before? Tight spots in your low back, your shoulders, your face, your neck, wherever it is. This currency of attention, if you notice it in your body, then your body starts to repair it. And if you don't notice it and keep on ignoring it, well, then that blockage, those knots, that soreness, that stiffness, that weakness continues to grow because it's hidden from us. We're unconscious of our body. But when you pay your attention to your body, you learn that attention is what kickstarts all of these systems that we don't even need to understand because we can feel it happening. You deepen the breath, you pay attention to the body, and the body starts to change. And you can even observe the body changing. How you feel, where you feel it. And by shifting the body into a state of more peace, of more harmony, of more awareness, of more consciousness, it also shifts the tone of our thoughts. And it puts a little space in between the story that we're telling ourselves and the way that we're showing up again and again to these different situations in our life. So by calming or soothing the body, it shifts the thought, feeling, action loop of our life. It's the unconscious patterns that we walk all day. The autopilot of life gets broken just momentarily enough for us to see that there's infinite possibilities in front of us instead of just the same old loop that we walk when we're not paying attention. I hope this was helpful. And once again, if these cues or these instructions don't work for you, well, don't think it's all of what meditation is. These are just simple techniques. These are some of my favorite tools or techniques. But there's plenty others. If these don't work for you, make sure to recognize that a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice, is going to look different from person to person because we're all individuals at different places in our journey. But the more tools you have, the more techniques you know, and the more recognition that there's value in spending time and attention inward, the more often you'll do it. And it can change your life, physically, mentally, emotionally. But you have to spend the time, pay the attention. Thanks.